And we're spinning and we're spinning and we're back again, live world. I'm your host, Terry Earthwind Nichols, along with the marvelous
Linda Betches Nichols
and assorted crew. Oh, we got everybody here this week, and this is going to be an interesting conversation because this is a serious subject, rape culture. Linda?
Quite the topic. Stina Marie seems to be our expert here. What I get out of it is like rape is anything you haven't given your permission to that happens to you is like, that's rape. So how about you, Stina? There's lots of different things in rape culture.
Oh, yes. I could talk about this I could rant about this for a very long time.
For sure.
Rape culture is this like pervasive, I think of it like when you drop food coloring, into water, and it just seeps out into all of these different areas in our lives in ways that we don't necessarily realize it. But like you said, it's foundationally about violation, and it's about it feels like someone took something from you when they did something to you. So it's that feeling of I've been robbed of something has been taken away from me, and it's always obviously lacking consent. So we've talked about the importance of consent, and it's also the assumption that it's okay to take things from people without asking. It's that the things that we overlook, or the things that we kind of have just come to accept as like normal or common, or, oh, that's just, boys being boys, or, oh, that's just men being men. And those kinds of it's often gendered. But that's partly because we come out of this like patriarchal, society. And my partner the other day said something about, oh, that's not socially acceptable anymore, or that used to be socially acceptable. Right. And, when we say socially acceptable like that, what we mean is, as it has been socially defined as acceptable by white, cisgendered, heterosexual men in America.
Thank
you. What's socially acceptable is just what we've all kind of turned a blind eye to, or not had the gumption enough to like stand up and say this isn't okay.
Yep.
So there's so many dynamics of power play in rape culture too, where anytime you have somebody that has more power and they aren't acknowledging the power differential, and they're not doing anything about it to, give power to other people, then you're going to have people being violated. You're going to have people being ignored and just like steamrolled. So as we empower ourselves, that's why we feel compelled to share that with other people, when we're basically ethical individuals. It's because when you get power, then you want to share the power, and you want to make sure everyone has power and has a voice and has, the ability to consent and have boundaries and those things, where I just totally lost that train of thought. Whew.
That was awesome. And to add to your list, it's like we don't always know why something is so, right? Why is it acceptable? And I love the moms these days. They're going beyond that. Like, wait, what is the outcome of what we're doing? Not even like, I don't know why we're doing it, and going there. It's like, what is the outcome? Like, okay, we do this. This is acceptable. Well, what is that doing to our kids? What is that doing to me personally? Blah, blah. And they're standing up to it. And it reminds me of the monkey study where like 5 monkeys, and they put them in area with a ladder, and they put bananas at the top, and every time a monkey climbed the ladder to get the bananas, the monkeys down below got soaked with cold water. And so then they started getting mad and throwing them off, the ladder. I think they started getting mad anyways. Then they slowly started putting a new monkey and replacing one monkey at a time. And they were definitely like grabbing a monkey and throwing him off the ladder. And that monkey didn't know why I was getting thrown off the ladder. And then like all the new monkeys, and once it was to 5 new monkeys, they were just as mean. They didn't know why, because they weren't getting soaked. So it was just such an interesting experiment that really shows, imprints of why we do things. Because we don't know. One generation gets imprinted out of fear and mistrust. And then the next generation just goes, yeah, that's not safe. And that's why we do it.
And there's also the imprinting of privilege, which is inherent safety that you don't recognize. Whereas, a white person, you have inherent safeties that you may not even notice, or as a man. And there's various ways that in our society you get privilege, but generally white and male are the top 2 things that will get you inherent safety in certain situations.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, women are walking through parking lots like near panic attack, like checking over their shoulder with their keys, armed with pepper spray, with, you name it, feeling like we may have to defend ourselves at any moment.
Right.
And we think about what we wear, and we think about how we talk, and we think about who we look at, and all of those things. And I can't speak to the race element from a personal experience, but a lot of those things are similar, where there's racial profiling, and there's, going to a store and paying. I've heard stories of a Black person paying by check, and that being a really traumatic experience because they wouldn't accept the check because they didn't think they would have the money, and, things like that, where when you don't experience those things, you don't even realize they're happening until you see it, hear it, or think about it intentionally,
right,
and realize, this is not okay. This is really, really not okay.
Yeah.
And then we start to look for those things so that we can change those narratives, so that we can teach our kids to change those narratives. And I've seen, I love having my kids at home doing school too, because we get to have conversations about things that are taught in school. Maybe usually it's like in history or social studies. And I'll say, how do you think those people really felt when that was happening?
Nice.
What do you think it takes to move a people out of their homeland? Like if somebody showed up here and said, you need to move out of your house right now, what would they have to threaten you with in order to get you to just drop everything and leave and escape? They would have to threaten your life. They would have to threaten your family's lives. They would have to threaten, torture, like just getting young kids to realize on a level that they can understand that, that's also rape culture. It's raping groups of people, and it's raping the earth, and it's raping resources, and it's just all of these different ways that we just take and take and take, and don't fully realize what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to take it over to Dora, because she is the queen of understanding imprints. Well, maybe Dora and I share that one. So, because Dora's a breeder and we imprint puppies. So, and then you do hypnosis. So, maybe we can. Okay. And Dora imprints puppies, and she has. Maybe Dora, can you mute for a second? Okay, thanks. Yeah, we're getting some feedback, and if everybody else is muted, we'll be good. So yeah, because Dora's a breeder and she understands imprinting puppies so well. So and she does hypnosis. So we get the historical DNA kind of imprints, like afraid to show up because, you know, maybe we were burned as a witch or whatever in a past life, if you will. So, Dora, what comes up when you think of the word imprint?
When I think of the word imprint, I think of programming in a way. We program our kids and we program our puppies, and it's so powerful, and it's everywhere, you know. And we don't even realize what actually makes imprints most of the time, because we think well, often we think it's just the things that we say or do directly to the kid or to the puppy, but they're little sponges in a way, and they soak up everything that is happening around them. So it might be overhearing a conversation their parents are having in the kitchen while they're sitting in front of the TV, and they hear their parents arguing for the 30th time about money or something like that. And the kid grows up having issues with money because they overheard their parents having issues with money. So things like that are happening all the time. And especially I see it with my puppies, because they need a lot of imprinting, and it happening in such a small window of time. It's just 6 weeks, 5 weeks actually, from they are 3 weeks old until they're 8 weeks old and they move out from my care. I have to make them experience as much as I can in a secure and a protected environment, so they experience it, but I don't get scared. But when I invite people to come here and participate in this socialization, I can't socialize them. Sorry, myself. I need other people. I need kids, and I need elderly people, and I need 10 people at once. Yeah. So they experience as much as possible, and I can't foresee what they will say or do. So like one time I had a little kid here, 3 years old, something like that. And we thought that the kid would sit down and maybe touch the puppies. That's usually what they do in that age, you know, sit down on the floor and like, and touch them. And that would be okay. This particular kid found a ball, not a bouncy ball, but one of those hard plastic with, we can put treats in them. And when they roll around the floor, the little pieces of treat come out. Yeah, well, that was really funny to smash in the floor right next to the puppies that were 3 weeks old. So we had to cut that visit really short because I didn't want my puppies terrified of balls or kids, of course. So things like that are happening all the time. Yeah, I don't know how much I'm gonna go into that subject, but I could talk for hours.
Well, your book's gonna come out on that subject sooner than later, so that's super exciting. Okay, yeah. So let's hear from like Jenny or Shell. What's coming up for you guys when you hear rape culture?
I'll jump in. So when I think about like imprinting, and I think about when we learn things and the conditioning that we have as we're growing up, I often am thinking now about the little girl that I take to school to and from school every day, and some of the recent conversations that we've been having. We had an instance last week where like we got separated for like 20 seconds or less. It was very, very quick, and it was scary in the moment, and it got quickly resolved. But I mentioned this because yesterday we had a follow-up conversation while we were walking, and she said, well, what if it happens again? Like, what if? I said, well, there's a very slim chance. What if it happens again? And I said, you know what? If we get separated and you don't know what to do next, or you're panicking, or whatever the case may be, and my natural thought was, I said, find another mother. find a woman. And she said, well, what's wrong with going to a man? Why wouldn't I didn't want to like, she's so still like learning and experiencing the world and sheltered from a lot of things. And I wanted her to feel safe in that moment. And I said, well, if a mom or somebody that's watching children or taking care of them, if you go up to them, they're more likely to like take you under their wing too, like, and want to protect you too if you tell them that there is a problem. I said, not that a man won't do that, but you can almost guarantee that a woman is going to look after you in that way and help you find safety. I didn't feel like it was necessarily my place to be the one having that conversation with her, but it came up, and I want her to be prepared. Another conversation that we had recently in a similar vein was, she asked me today what my favorite animal was, or what I would want as a pet. We were talking about pets. And I said, I don't know what kind of pet I would want if it wasn't a cat. And then we were talking about other animals. And I said, well, have you ever been on a horse? No, I'm too afraid of them. And I'm generalizing right now. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but then that led to the conversation of, well, I don't want the animal to bite me, whether it's a horse, a cat, a dog, whatever it is. I said, well, that goes back to the environment that they're brought up in. That goes back to how they were trained, who they were around, how other people interacted with them, and less to do with their just natural instinct is to bite. I said, sometimes a bite is that animal's way of being playful, but it goes back to how they're conditioned. And so I said, so if you're around one of those animals and you feel afraid, that animal can sense it. And so it became a whole discussion about like how to not be afraid around animals, or what to do if you are afraid around animals. And so I think that relates to the conditioning that we have with other humans. It brings me back to when I was in the workplace and men would inappropriately like touch me or make comments, and then just being told to chalk it up to male chauvinism. Well, what made that acceptable? Why do men feel like they can keep doing that? And not that a woman couldn't do those things to other women or to men themselves, but it's more common in women. It's more common for women to experience it from a man. So there's a whole dynamic of like the conditioning that we experience ourselves, and then how that relates to the rest of the world around us. So it's a lot of different things, but it comes from the conditioning. It's the imprinting. It's the thing that society says is acceptable versus not. And that's what's been coming up for me.
Thank you, Shell.
Whoa.
Can I just dig in? What comes up for me is that I have experienced 2 rapes in my life that I really consider rape, from the way I define it. And I understood it way, way after. I think that is, and also like sharing about it, I'm concerned with how other people will react. Isn't that very interesting when it's my story to share? The reason why I understood way after, I believe, no, maybe 3. Hey, listen. The reason why I understood it way after was because to understand what is rape, I need to understand what is against my will. And to get there, I need to understand my will, what my yes feels like and what my no feels like. And I think part of ending this is supporting our kids in being in touch with normal reaction to things. I remember growing up in school and the boys would be smacking my butt or doing things that were really crossing my boundaries. And I was told that they just like you. It's because you're cute. There were so many messages that made me feel like I'm not allowed to be upset. I should just forgive and understand straight away. So I jumped the most natural part of exploring my own boundaries and knowing where I end, what's my responsibility and where the other person begins. What is their responsibility? And what can I say? I just know that with my kids, I have the opportunity to heal and be a cycle breaker and bring something else and help them explore that for them. So that's what's coming up for me.
The mouse was too fast. Get to the mute. Yeah. Oof, and that idea of what society, Jenny says, is your responsibility. Like, well, if you weren't dressed that way, that wouldn't happen to you. I'm not talking about you in particular, that whole attitude. And it's like, Stina, I love the way Stina talks about it. It's like, hey, if you're laying in bed naked with a man, that still doesn't give him a right to your body. Right? So, yeah, it's not about what you wear. Interesting. All right. Stina, do you have anything to wrap it up? Or are you good?
I had something a minute ago. I loved what Jenny said about knowing your own will. I think that was just really spot on, is that in order for us to start to identify the areas where this is pervasive in our own lives, we do have to get in touch with that. And we've talked about that before, and I've taught on that, like feeling your yes and feeling your no. And I hope so much that I will be able to instill in my kids a healthy exploration of positive experiences where they get to feel their yes, the other person feels their yes, and they get to affirm that together, whether it's with a kiss, with hand holding, with hugging, and like progressively intimate touch, that they get to have just a lot of experiences that they want to have with people that want to also have those experiences with them. I used to say when I was dating, like, if I wanted someone, if I desired someone, whether it was for a conversation, a date, or more, that if the other person did not return that, if it was not mutual, then I no longer desire them, period. Like, I don't long after people that are not interested, or that have expressed or ghosted or been weird about it or anything, because in a way that's almost the emotional consent piece, where I look for enthusiastic responses. I look for people that are uninhibited in their yes. So, the maybe or the no answer, I'm just not interested, and I'm going to move on to someone who is enthusiastic. And I think that everyone would be well served to look for that enthusiasm. Because when you have mutual enthusiasm, like, then there's no violation, there's no rape energy or exchange at all. And so we can all seek those out for ourselves too, and practice them and intentionally have those experiences, because that's what we can do to disconfirm and overwrite those past experiences that we've had where we haven't had the opportunity to be enthusiastic and consent.
Amen.
That's great.
Well, the guy got started, and the guy got to finish it with a lot of education in the middle. Thank you, ladies, for this amazing conversation. Some reflections back of me as a little boy and what was tolerated. That was middle of last century ago, but it's still valid today, and that's not right. Okay. So thank you, ladies, for stopping in, and thank you for listening to our broadcast. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everyone.